All right. Before we start project 4, this is what you want to hear before project. It is your last one. What if we cover it tonight, but rather than have it due next week, I'll extend it one more week, just project 4. I'm a little concerned. I don't want project 4 rushed because we're going to use it again for the DM yard service project. So I really do want project 4 done well. That way, if you have questions, you're not panicking that it's due next week, Tuesday or sorry, Monday. Okay? So we'll make it, instead of the 16th, the 23rd. So make that change. Pardon? Project 4. Yeah, project 4. Project 3 I still would like done next week, so we keep moving. Next week, we're covering DM yard service. I just looked through March. I don't think they're long assignments though. So if you could, since we're not having project 4 due next week, download that QuickBooks if you need to, and start January before we meet next week. It gives you something different to do. I think the instructions are pretty clear as to what to do. There's really nothing, I mean, even if you got it downloaded, that would be a big step so we can hit the ground running next week. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to point out some of the transactions. They do require you to do them manually, and I would like to see that. So I will be handing out journal pages, because one of the things I've seen is students enter it in QuickBooks and don't realize the debit and credit it's creating. Right? As accountants, we need to know debits and credits, whether it's done by QuickBooks or us manually. So I am going to spend a little time on debits and credits. I don't like to see a debit to accumulated depreciation and a credit to depreciation expense. That's backwards, right? I was just checking. So that's my concern. And I'm not saying I don't make mistakes on entries either, but since we don't do them a lot, we do tend to forget. Because I've seen it on past classes of this class. I asked them to make an adjusting entry, and it's like, oh my gosh, how do I do that, right? So we want to be comfortable with those. Okay. Now, I know a lot of you are working on projects, and that's fine. But project 4 is not, it's like project 1 as far as workload. It's less than it used to be, but it's still enough, okay? There is also a lot of if statements and new lookups in project 4. So we're going to hit it again. So that's kind of why it's like project 1. Are you ready? Ready as you'll ever be?
I didn't math, but I think it's good.
Just like a shot at the doctor's office? Okay, here we go. You have 2 packets in front of you for project 4. Your task is to create a depreciation schedule, both book purpose, which is what you're going to use for DM, yard service. So the assets that are listed here on page 1 are the exact assets that you're going to purchase in DM yard service. Okay, even the dates are the same. The amounts are the same. What I have added is a maker's class life. That's not in the packet because you're using book in the packet. Do you see the 2 columns here?
Makers, straight line. Makers is tax, straight line is the book. So with your depreciation schedules, you're going to do both a makers or tax schedule as well as a straight line book schedule. The lives are there. There are no resale or salvage values for any of the assets. That would have been used for the straight line method, right? The cost minus salvage value is depreciable over its life. So we don't have to worry about salvage value, but what is new, the book or the author wants a half-year convention for book purposes. The maker's tax schedule is already set up for half-year convention. So that we don't have to worry about. But you do have to worry about the half-year convention for straight line method. So if my expense for the first year is $1,000, half of that is $500 I should see in year one, correct? If it's a 7-year life, I'm going to have to go to the 8th year, correct, to get the last half. Does everybody understand that? Half-year convention, I'm only taking half in the first year, which means my schedule has to go to 8 years if it's a 7-year life to get the last half. Right? Is that good? You'll see that once we get going here. Okay. Tiffany, what's up? Yes, there are instructions for the 28 download in the books, Tiffany. There is no CD with it, but there's a website you go to. Okay. All right. So these are the assets. What you're going to have, I'm right here right now, guys. You'll have 3 separate worksheets for the lawn and truck equipment, 2 more individual worksheets for the office. So a total of 5 worksheets. This is where it's going to get kind of large, this project. After those 5 are done, you're going to have 2 more worksheets, summing up the truck, summing up the office. So now we're up to 7 worksheets. Finally, you'll have 1 more worksheet that does a summary of the 2 together for the year 2019. So that's a total of 8 worksheets for this project. We will discuss the if statements. We'll discuss rounding, protection, formatting numbers, everything else. What's required for printouts? A summation of all 3. There's 3 different ones. 1, 2, 3 summation reports. Because of the size of the worksheet, all done landscaped and centered horizontally. Those 3 worksheets are submitted with your Excel file. I'll change the due date on this to the 23rd instead of next week. That's the goal. So if you do have questions, guys, you can, even if you wanted to work on projects 1, 2, 3, I know I'd rather have them late than not done well. Is that clear? Again, project 1's going to be used in the DM yard service as well. So let's do those well. I'd rather them late. We'll worry about the little penalty. I don't give a big penalty anyway. Guys, can you find this worksheet, please? There's 2 halves to this worksheet. remember, there's going to be 3 of these plus 2 of these. So 5 total. 3 of the truck and equipment, 2 of the office. So 5 of these worksheets. So it's imperative that we get the one done correctly, perfectly before you start copying. So often students start copying the worksheets without having the first one really nice. So here again, if you want to send me what you have for worksheet 1, I can review it and say, this is missing, this is missing. Because it's really hard to fix all 5 versus 1, right? The upper section is basically the input section, so to speak. Remember, we had 8 worksheets, 5 plus the 3 summaries. Well, I have a 9th, which is going to be the input worksheet, or the actual asset worksheet. So, those 5 assets on page 1 of your assignment will be on its own worksheet. Just recreate it, type in the names, type in the dollar amounts, type in the lives. You don't need the resale value, you don't use it. Because I want a cell reference, right? Those numbers into my input section.
You're talking about this part right here, right?
Yes, exactly, Crystal. Page 1. What's the first asset on page 1, Crystal?
Lawn and truck equipment.
Yep. So that'll be your first asset name, and then type in the date of acquisition. Type in the salvage value, which is all going to be zeros, and estimated useful life and class life. Those are all these cell reference things. Okay, go back to this worksheet again. I'm going to make all my notes on here, on this one worksheet. You see where the 2019 is? It says use year formula. Use year formula in this cell only. Here's the year formula. That's it. In the parentheses will be a cell reference to that location where the date is, date of acquisition. They'll all be 2019 because they're all purchased in 2019. So that in the brackets will be a cell reference. You will have to format this as a number though. These numbers here are numbers, not dates. Because I want to take the prior cell plus 1 for 2020. You know what I mean? So next year, if I have a 2020 asset, this schedule will start at 2020 and then add 1 more year. All right, next. Period year. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4 in it. That's actually a cell. So the 1's in its own cell. I know it's big and so forth. The 2 is in its own cell. Hand type these in. Just hand type that 1, 2 in there. Next column over, straight line. You will use the SLN command. SLN, straight line method. Now there'll be separate instructions on that if test coming up. Next column over is the tax depreciation. You will have two choices, either the assets of 5-year or 7-year assets. Can I have you turn to page 4? It's got the maker's rates on it. This is your 10th worksheet. You will, in a separate worksheet, create these rates. Create a new worksheet with these rates in it. So where it says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, for the 7-year class, you'll have a separate worksheet for that. So with my sample here, you'll have an asset worksheet which lists all the assets, right, on its separate worksheet. You'll have the tax rates on its own worksheet. And then you'll have your first worksheet, which is actually the schedules, those 5 schedules.
So there will be 10 in total.
10 in total. We're up to 10 now. 5 individual, 3 summary, the asset worksheet, which is number 9, the maker's worksheet, which is number 10. We're stopping there.
I believe you. No.
It is 10. Okay,
What was the first worksheet?
the asset worksheet.
I took number 9.
Oh. Well, let's go back then to number 1, which would be the individual worksheets. There's 5 of those. 3 summary, which we haven't talked about yet, Cheryl. And then the asset is number 9, and the tax rates are number 10. Now again, Cheryl, we have next week to help you through this, right? So I know it's overwhelming for you at this point. If you want to, I'd like to still finish the discussion. And then just ask questions as we get to it next week. I certainly don't want to overwhelm us because there's other things that have to be done tonight. So I should be wrapped up in about 45 minutes. Being accelerated, this is not easy, guys, but I have no choice, okay? All right, so we got those worksheets, tables, assets section. Here again, if I go back to my sample, maybe what I'll do is I just will discuss what I'm looking for. I actually won't go through the formulas. And maybe I'll do a separate video on that on my own that you can look to later. I'm just fearful if I go through the formulas, you're not going to get it anyway. So here's what I'd like to do. Starting here, the SLN command. It is an Excel function. It's asking for three things. What is the cost? What is the salvage? What is the life? That's it. And it computes an answer. The other packet, which is the instructions or formulas, it looks like this. Page 1 has the SLN command there. So everything I'm talking about as to what I want you to do in these formulas is in this other packet for reference. Okay. Now, what I want to do on the makers column is a VLOOKUP command. Remember, a VLOOKUP has three parts basically. I forgot the word false, but that's four. The class life lookup value. The 5 is the table array. The 2 is what column number do I bring in? So here's what it does. I'm going to go, just watch. Class slide, right? Oh, I'm in 3. Let me get rid of this. That messed up all these. Don't worry about those. Okay, what did it do? It brought in the class life for that asset, 1152. Which is period 4. Oh. I got the wrong lookup value. C10. There it is. Sorry. So basically my lookup value, I'm looking this box up to match what my tax rate is in period 1 for the 5th period for the 5-year class, which is 0.2. That brings it in. That's what the lookup value is going to do for us, is determine what rate to bring in for each month or each year, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so forth. So you will need a VLOOKUP command in the makers column. What makes it tricky is we got 2. Right? You've got a 5-year class and a 7. So what we're going to do then is add an if test to determine whether it's a 5 or a 7. So within the makers column then, we'll have an if test. To determine 5 or 7.
So that VLOOKUP is not going to be class like, there's going to be period.
Thank you, Crystal Lynn. right? Yes. Very good job. Period year, which are these numbers over here. 1, 2, 3, and so forth. All right. Now, once I have the rate, what do I got to do with that rate? That 0.2. I have to multiply it, right? This is all net cell.
And then obviously round it, right?
Thinking what I'm thinking.
Oh, that's kind of scary.
That's amazing. Yes, we have to round it. And we're going to round it to 0 places. All of that will be in the cell. Now there's one nice thing, I can get to everybody, right? Because I don't have 30 students, I have 10, 11. So if you were looking at this now, I started with the VLOOKUP. What would you do next? I want you to start with the VLOOKUP first. But you're creating this big, long formula. What would you do next? I actually would do the if statement last. Then do the multiply second. So I get the dollar amount, right, of depreciation. What do I do next? The round, Cheryl's right. We would do the round next. And then lastly, we would do the So let me put that down. I'm going to use purple. I would do this first, the VLOOKUP for 5-year class. I would do the asset multiplication second. I would do the round third. And then finally, the fourth would be the ifs test to determine whether it's a 5 or 7. What other things do we have to do in this formula? We got to do the false. We got the true done. So the if test is if cell C6 is 5, then we do this VLOOKUP for 5, right? That's the true. The false will be use 7. So we're going to copy the whole true formula, including the round command, to make my false formula. Change the 5 to 7, right? The range name from 5 to 7, and now it's already done. I get test is done. Can I have you turn to page Page 2 discusses that maker's computation. Page 2. The bottom of page 2. So for next week, review page 2. It talks about range naming 5 and 7. it talks about the two different ranges, one for 5, one for 7, and then the two if statements for 5 or 7 below. But we kind of got an overview of what should be found in Excel. Okay, another concern. What happens when we reach the end of the class life? We gotta make it stop. So once we have the 5 done, once we have the 7 done, we're gonna create another if test.
Is that like an if greater than 0?
Yep. If. Right? Nope. Jeez. There. If the period year, which are these numbers at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, if these cells here are less than or equal to class life plus 1. Now the reason the plus 1 is there is it's half year convention. Baker's is half year convention also. So I gotta be prepared to go one more year beyond 5 or one more year beyond 7. Get all the periods, all the rates. That's the if thing. Now I do have an if statement worksheet. That's what I was looking for. This is on the last page of the assignment. Baker's depreciation column. You will have two if statements in it. Two if statements in it. First, to determine the class life, if it's 5 or 7. The second if is to test whether it's going to be working or stop working. If it's after 8 or after 6, it should be 0. Is your false. This is heavy stuff. But other kids have done it. You can do it too. I know you can.
There's students that have made it through this class. Oh,
You
where's
can
that
do
if
it.
statement?
You can do this. I know you guys can. Okay? But look how beautiful that is. Can you see showing your boss that? When it takes up the whole line here, Connor, wouldn't that be awesome? That is pretty cool. Now, do you notice there's a column 1 if statement for the straight line method as well? there will be a difference in the straight line because it's half year convention. So that straight line has to be what? Divided by 2 in that first year. Then we go on to normal. Let me look there. I've got a double if also for the remains for periods 2 through 11. There's another if statement, double one, to handle, well, when does the last payment occur, basically. So we will reference to this if statement worksheet next week when you're working on it. But look at the sequence. For the makers, do that first, that you look up first for the 5-year class. Get that rate in, multiply it, round it, and then I'll help you with the if test using this sheet that I gave you here to get through the rest of it. Same thing with the straight line method. Get the SLN first. Guess what we have to do? Round it to 0, then we add our if tests. That's the sequence. We don't copy anything until these, well, we can't copy the first one over here because it's half year. We got to start over in year 2. But we don't copy it down until we get that correct. Right? When you're all done, you should have fully depreciated both assets. Now there will be a rounding error. Because of the way we're rounding to 0, you might depreciate over $1 or under $1. That's fine. We're not going to worry about it. That would require another if test to force the last one. I don't think we can do that. So then you look at 3.
Can't we just add like a -1 or +1 at the end of your whole formula?
But you want it to function for whatever asset you're going to make. Some assets are going to come out perfect. So just let it go. Unless you want to do another if statement, you can look for, right, the last payment. Take the difference from the prior accumulated and subtract it from the asset cost to force the last payment to always come out. But again, I think this is plenty. You can do it on your own if you wish. That's the upper half. That's the worst part. If you get through that, you're cool. Should we go to the bottom half and then I'll stop talking. Because the rest of it is 3D summation, just data consolidation. We've done that for the other worksheets. Let's go through the last half then. I'm talking from this side. Maybe you guys don't. I do. Now, the lower half. Hand type. I do want 2018. I'll tell you why shortly. I want you to start with 2018 through 2027. So hand type those in. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 columns. 1, 2, 3, 4 columns. So just type in those headings, type in those, even if you got it set up so that it's ready to go next week, that would be awesome. This one worksheet style, design, that would be awesome. Now, the formulas, starting with column 1. Is a cell reference. Start there. The expense will be a VLOOKUP. Now, accumulated depreciation in the first year will be what? The same as the current depreciation, first year, crystalline. So I'm just going to press equal. But crystalline, what's it going to be in the second year? You said it then. Prior year plus current, right? So this will be a formula prior plus current. That's what accumulated means. It means accumulated depreciation. What is book value? What is that? That might be an interview question for you. How do we compute book value of an asset? Remember, GAAP says we should do what? Show the asset cost, then the accumulated. What do we do on the balance sheet? Then what?
The net.
The net, which is what we call book value. Excellent. So how do I get book value? Take column 1 minus
Column 3.
column 3. That's it. You're done.
Actually just had to do this down in finance like last week.
What did you say?
Column 1 minus column 3. Is it not the asset cost minus the accumulated? Just like on the balance sheet, right? GAAP says we have to do that. Okay. Now, let's start with the VLOOKUP. That's your hard one here. You will create a range name. Oops. And you're going to call it depreciation. And the scope is worksheet. Remember, we have 5 of these assets. You can't intermix them. Excel will blow up. So the scope of this range name has to be changed to a worksheet versus a workbook. Can anybody tell me how I do that? Where
Any
to?
other trick?
Yes! Who said that?
Cassie.
Cassie. Awesome. Now, where is name manager? Excellent, Crystalline. You rock. Right in the middle here, right? Name manager. I didn't highlight anything, so I'm going to create new anyway. Here's where the scope question is. I'm on my 16 manufacturing worksheet. So that's the worksheet. That's the scope that this range name will be and only used on. What I want to do here, guys, here's what it's going to do. I'm on 2016 in my example. I have 5,000 of depreciation expense, right? In column 2. Well, how am I doing it? I'm going to VLOOKUP the range up above, search by the year to match the year up above, pull in column 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's what the VLOOKUP does. So whatever a year I have here, right, on the bottom, matches the year up above and pulls that expense in. So if I bought this asset as an, let's just say I changed the amount. My 5s turn to 6s, right? And my accumulated goes from 6 to 12 to 18 to 24. That's what the VLOOKUP does. I'm not going to go in there. Do you know why this VLOOKUP is there now? I want to look up above in my range, pull the depreciation expense down when the year matches the year up above. All right? That's the only VLOOKUP. I'm going to need one for makers too. Instead of column 1, 2, 3, 4, it's going to be 5, 6. To get that column's number to go into the maker's schedule. So you will have another VLOOKUP right here. But we're going to use a different column. That's all. Column 6 instead of 4. The rest are simple subtractions, right, or additions. But there's one more thing. Do you have your if test yet? It's on the assignment sheet, the last page. There are 2 if tests. There's an if test here on the asset value, and there's an if test here on the VLOOKUP, right? On that sheet. Right? Nope. Yeah. That's me. Right there. See, there's a lower section, column 1, column 2. That's the if test I want to see in column asset value and column depreciation expense 1 and 2. I don't want to do the cell reference, or I don't want to do the VLOOKUP until I meet the year. So if I bought this in 19, which I'm showing here, what should be on row 18? Zeros. Right, because I bought it in 19. There should be no asset in 18. That's why I have the 18 there. I want to see that. Because for instance, I can keep this schedule because I hand type these numbers in, and if I bought the asset next year in 2020, I should not see depreciation on 18 or 19. I should only see it starting at row 20. That's what that if test does. It starts the formula. If it hasn't reached that level, it's going to be a 0. That's the lower section. So this if test, this worksheet, this if worksheet is your friend for project 4. It shows you where they are, and it shows you what's true and what's false and how many ifs you need to get it to work. You start by the true statement and you work your way out. All right. I think that's it. What's left for project 3, let's just go through the rubric. And Cheryl, this might help to us how many worksheets you're going to have. Here are the 5, right? Here are the 3 summaries and the input. The only thing I don't have in here are the makers. Also with that makers, you're going to have 2 range names, right? One called 5, one called 7. We talked about the round, we talked about the year plan. The automatic in the upper section is reading the same in the lower section. That should be 2018. You start with, in the lower section, you will start from 2018, not 19. And the only thing we have not covered is we're going to use 3D sum and then data consolidate for the three different types of summations. I'm going to have a summary of the truck equipment and a summary of the office using 3D summation. I'll show you that in the data consolidate. So that's a brief overview of what these worksheets will do. All right. I'm done. Are you guys done? Guys? You're not going to quit on me, right? We will get through this. I'm serious here. You've got to talk to me and let me know how you're doing. That's my job, is to help you through this. Any final thoughts? All right, the rest of the class is yours. Go ahead. Whatever project you wish to work on, just keep me, I'll be on my feet tonight, so.
Do you have any paper clips up there?
Oh boy. Hold on, let me start my recording here.